Good afternoon, it's 24 degrees and it is the 25th of November. It's a Wednesday and the time is about 2:36 in the afternoon, or 14:36, and I'm in Brunswick Street and we're heading almost into New Farm Park. Well, we're almost in New Farm Park now, but we're going to actually go in there and have a walk around. So this is nearing the end of Brunswick Street. Brunswick Street is a very long street which goes right through into Fortitude Valley, heading up that way. Jacaranda trees are almost finished. They're coming out of flower. And the Poinciana trees are beginning to flower. Well, New Farm Park is a heritage listed riverfront public park, and the exact address is 137 Sydney Street, New Farm, City of Brisbane. Although I'm coming in from Brunswick Street. New Farm is a great suburb. There's lots to see and do here in New Farm, including obviously New Farm Park. This park was designed by Albert Herbert Foster and built from 1914 to 1950 by Gladwin, Legg and Co. It was added to the Queensland Heritage Register on the 7th of February 2005. We'll just go through the main gates here. This park covers 15 hectares or 37 acres and is at the southeastern end of New Farm Peninsula on a bend in the Brisbane River. The Powerhouse Arts Centre. The Powerhouse Arts Centre used to actually be a powerhouse, but the Powerhouse Arts Centre is at the eastern end of the park. We'll have a quick look at that as well. And the park includes the New Farm Park Ferry, Wharf and links to Brisbane River Walk. And the Brisbane River Walk goes all the way from here, from Newstead to Toowong. It's one of Brisbane's most popular parklands right here, and it's a great tourist attraction as well. So the sculptured terrain of the Sabai illustrates the route of the death marches, shown by a bronze ribbon between Sandakan and Ranau, which was substantially swamp and dense jungle in 1945. And this plaque records the names of Queensland prisoner of war who survived imprisonment in Sandakan camp. They survived because they escaped from the death marches or were moved to other prisons. In August 1943, the Sandakan underground network and wireless operation was discovered. Those arrested, including civilians, were tortured. Some were executed, others were sent to special prisons. Most survivors listed on this plaque were sent to Kuching POW camp to ensure tighter supervision. At the end of the war, all POW camps in Borneo were wiped out, and any survivors murdered by order of the Japanese Army headquarters. Only at Kuching did the camp commander not carry out the order. The starving and sick survivors were rescued by the 9th Division AIF troops in September 1945. They, with the escapees, were able to provide evidence of the atrocities committed in POW camps in Borneo. And there's some bottle trees over there. I'll take you quickly through the rose garden. We'll have a look at that. New Farm Park, created in 1914, currently covers 37 acres of land and is bounded by Brunswick Street and Sydney Street New Farm. It adjoins the Brisbane Powerhouse Arts Precinct, as we mentioned, and of course the Brisbane River. And prior to European settlement, the New Farm area was covered with bush and dotted with shallow lagoons. This area supported a variety of wildlife and proved a bountiful resource to local Aboriginals as well. Here we go into the rose area. The perfume in here from these roses is quite strong. These rose gardens just go on for a long, long way. And for just roses, this must be the most extensive rose garden display in Brisbane, if not Queensland. (1964) 2018. Well, of course we're in 2020 now, but after Henry Oakman left council in 1963, the rose gardens at New Farm Park stayed mostly the same until the floods of 1974, when a large number of the roses were inundated. In 1976, a large stormwater drain was installed through the middle of the park to provide relief from flooding, which reduced the bottom edge of the circle gardens. Around this time, Harry Oakman's rose gardens, now known as Hillside Gardens, were removed, and by 1986 all of Oakman's rose gardens had been altered. In 2016, Lord Mayor Graham Quirk and Councillor for Central Ward Vicky Howard announced Council's commitment to keep New Farm Park blooming. They planted a pink Jane McGrath rose just before Mother's Day in support of the McGrath Foundation, and announced that it would be the first of many more rose bushes to be planted. At the time, there were approximately 2,500 roses in New Farm Park, and the commitment was made to double that number. The roses at New Farm Park have always been a favourite for the people of Brisbane. The new gardens bring them one step closer to the glory of Henry Moore and Harry Oakman's gardens. So there's a picture of the roses, or the rose gardens, recovering from the 1974 floods. The 2008 rose planting, 2018 rose planting I should say, and aerial photographs showing the extent of the floods 29th of January 1974. Beautiful roses right through here. Just some more information, and we'll have a look at some more of these gardens. But Harry Oakman joined Brisbane City Council as Parks Superintendent just after World War II in 1946. And between 1949 and 54, he renovated Henry Moore's Rose Gardens at New Farm Park. One of Oakman's key aims was to design the new layout so that all of the existing trees could actually be kept. Harry Oakman wrote an article in the Courier Mail to explain the new scheme and noted that previously many of the rose bushes were very old, were planted in huge beds and indiscriminately mixed. He said that his aim was to modernise the park, redesign the beds in conformity with modern practice throughout the world, plant all the roses in beds of supporting colours and provide tasteful name cards for all varieties. At the time there were 10,000 roses in New Farm Park, and it was said that eventually there'd be 25,000. And the new gardens were built in stages, starting with the area now known as the Heritage Gardens, followed by Hillside Gardens and the area near the bandstand. Next came the area now known as Kiosk Garden, and eventually in 1954 the gardens inside the inner pathway, the Circle Gardens. So there's a photo there, the gardener training climbing roses over an arbour here in New Farm Park back in 1954. And Mrs. P. Conrad and Miss C. Maguire in the Rose Garden at New Farm Park, 1954. All right, we'll just keep walking down. Be a lot of work maintaining these rose bushes. Massive roses. Just quickly walk up here. You might be able to see in the distance a building. That's the actual powerhouse. Used to be a powerhouse which powered part of Brisbane at one stage. Being right on the river, it was just perfect because they had all the water they needed for cooling the power station. Now it's used as an entertainment venue and a venue for drinking and eating. I'll have a closer look at that later. This actual area where we are now was called Binkenba, spelt B-I-N-K-I-N-B-A, meaning place of the land of the tortoise. And following the founding of the Moreton Bay convict settlement on the Brisbane River, the land on which the park now stands was initially a farm and a site in 1846 which operated until 1913 when the land for the park was acquired by the Brisbane City Council. The Queensland Governor, Hamilton Gould Adams, conducted the official opening of the park, which was delayed until July 1919 because of World War I. Let's look at the extent of these roses. So after a penal settlement was founded in 1825 at the location of the current Brisbane CBD, food was actually grown on cleared land in South Brisbane and also the present City Botanical Gardens, which is off Alice Street in Brisbane CBD. But in 1827, Captain Patrick Logan ordered the clearing of a new farm between the present-day Merthyr Road and the river, hence the name New Farm. Drainage canals were dug and convict labourers grew maize, potatoes, pumpkin and corn on this new farm. The convicts were marched to work each day from their main barracks in town, following a track on high ground that later became Moray Street. And due to the decline of the penal settlement following changes in British policy, free settlement began in Brisbane in 1842. A farmer named Prendergast appears to have planted maize at the new farm in 1842, although he was only leasing the land. Speculators in 1844 purchased the new farm's lowlands, and tenant farming followed, with dairying and small crops. Early resident Richard Jones acquired 93 acres in 1847 and called it officially New Farm. Later, Jones would become the first Brisbane person to be a member in the New South Wales Legislative Council prior to the separation of Queensland in 1859. In 1846, the Moreton Bay Jockey Club moved its annual race from Cooper's Plains to land right here at New Farm, owned by Thomas Adams, but the race meeting moved then to Eagle Farm in 1861. There, of course, is the New Farm Park Rotunda. As horse racing disappeared from the area, suburban Brisbane was growing, and the municipality of Brisbane was formed in 1859, and the small farms of New Farm gave way in the 1870s to residences of Brisbane's elite. Sir Samuel Griffith purchased 80 acres, bounded by Sydney Street and Moray Street in 1870, and built his residence called Merthyr in 1881, which sadly was demolished in 1963. This bandstand, by the way, was erected by William Chaplin for £386. And it actually declared in a newspaper report, quote, "a more ideal spot in nature's garden one could scarcely imagine," unquote. And this was opened for public recreation on the 13th of April 1916. It was a remarkable reshaping of the area. Previously, the site of the park was adjacent to the 1840 to 50s New Farm racecourse and had become an unsightly, ill-drained grazing reserve. This rotunda provided for concerts, and a fully equipped kiosk to provide first-class refreshments complemented the new park's extensive layout of gardens, lawns, tree planting, roadways and paths. The first concert in the bandstand was reportedly on the 14th of May 1916, when Brisbane Labourer and Union Band offered a Sunday program. And the nearby tramway terminal, because trams made their way down to this area, made the new park very accessible from the city. Brisbane had to wait until after the end of the Great War for the official opening of the park, remember, in 1919. And a kiosk on the park's northeast side was destroyed by fire in 2000, but the rotunda, the bandstand, had been the venue for everything from musical performances, weddings and family reunions to learning and recreational activities for more than 100 years. So here's a picture of the original kiosk, which is no longer here because it got burnt down on the northeast side of the park. Right, and there it is. Look at these beautiful big trees in here. Horse-drawn trams had extended their run along Brunswick Street to Langshaw Street by December 1885. The electrification of trams occurred after 1895, and trams reached New Farm Park in 1926. Portions of New Farm's swamps were drained between 1884 and 1887, and open stone drains were built on the eastern side of the peninsula, being diverted along Merthyr Road to the river. By the way, in 1920, Edward, Prince of Wales, visited this park, and the Bougainvillea Avenue was renamed the Prince's Walk. Powerhouse is where a lot of comedians perform, and various bands as well. On the other side there's, which I'll show you, we'll go down and have a look at the front, river frontage of the Powerhouse soon. And this was actually, as I said before, a powerhouse which generated power to a part of Brisbane before Swanbank took over and all those other substations, etc. The park is also a great spot for weddings at that rotunda that I showed you before. The gardens for the wedding photography. Also some arty wedding photography up against those walls. We'll go back down again this way and we'll have a look at the river. The basic Edwardian layout of this entire park, designed by Henry Moore, remains largely intact today, along with remnants from the late 1940s, early 1950s garden redesign undertaken by Harry Oakman. Various structures and rose gardens have also come and gone, but many of the earlier tree plantings remain. A New Farm Park's 37 acres currently contains a wide variety of trees, both mature and recent plantings, including jacarandas and poincianas, figs, palms and coral trees. The central lawn within the Jacaranda Drive contains the remnants of the post-1948 rose garden arrangements, and an area of rainforest has been planted behind the library. It's going to get windy down here. So this is where people can have a bite to eat, have a drink. It's that great atmosphere overlooking the Brisbane River. You can see some of the residences on the other side of the river. Some of the housing. I'll just zoom up to one house in particular. And this river walk goes for miles. Take you almost into the Toowong area. Along Coronation Drive eventually. Or we might just head up again through the park. On the weekends, there are people everywhere. A lot of these poinciana trees aren't out in flower. When they're all out, they look very spectacular. There's one in the distance way over there that's in flower. There it is. Some more poincianas about to come out into flower. So I hope you enjoyed that walk with me through New Farm Park. Thanks for joining me on the walk. Please subscribe. I really do need your subscriptions just by clicking on the subscription button, and then you'll be notified of any new videos that come up. We're just heading out of New Farm Park now in the same direction that we entered. There's car parking right through here as well. You don't have to park on the footpath. You can actually drive into the park, and there's plenty of car parking for free in this park. I just want to quickly have a look at this sign before we finish this video off. A little bit of information here. I think I've given you most of the information anyway. Let's see if there's anything new in here. Yeah, no, all that information I've already given you. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching. This is Jeff, otherwise known as Explorerman, signing off. And remember to subscribe, and you'll be notified of any new walking videos that come up. Thank you again for watching. Have a great day.